We had included board subcommittee and liaison assignments in the packet. There's a revised one coming around right now. It's a minor, just one minor change. When the bylaws were revised to include or to reduce subcommittees from a 4-member subcommittee to a 3-member subcommittee, not all of the language in the bylaw was cleaned up. There's one statement in the bylaw that states that every board member shall serve on at least 2 standing committees. However, with having 5 committees and 3 slots, that's only 15 positions, but with 9 members, that's 18 people needing 15 slots, so somebody doesn't get 2. It's just the way it works out. Also, in the bylaws that are online and posted, you will see that expulsion is identified as a subcommittee, although that was voted down by this board and not made a subcommittee, so that is on there in error. That has to be taken down.
Now, I looked at the minutes and didn't necessarily find that.
That was...
I saw very vague references to something being approved as including or encompassing changes made by Ellen, but then it never got specified in minutes, nor did it ever show up in our own policy, which says it's revised as of January 14th, which is the meeting at which that happened.
Right. The conversation, the motion that was made
Caught that?
was made without grievance being a subcommittee. It was expulsion, I'm sorry. It was made without expulsion being a subcommittee. That was the motion that was made, and then the discussion carried on, and then that motion eventually was approved.
But that motion was never written down in the minutes, at least not that I saw. So it depends on people's memories or going back to the video record. I mean, I don't doubt it. I'm just saying that it'd be nice if we actually had our bylaws
Yes.
the way they're supposed to be.
Yes, there were several errors in it that have been picked up over the last 2 days, and we've been trying to clean them up. And we, as chair, I wanted to see expulsion in there as a subcommittee because trying to find 3 members was always a challenge, but it always ends up being the same 3 members anyway, so they might as well have just been identified as the expulsion committee. But there were other members that felt that that wasn't necessary.
Okay, so, for instance, there's an expulsion hearing next Wednesday. Who chairs that meeting?
That's decided by the members that show up.
That show up. They elect the chairman before
the
okay.
committee, before the
That's
expulsion starts. The only changes that you see in there is in the way the list was written up. In my error, I always put grievance in with the 3 negotiation committees, and I forget that it's a standing committee. Because any 3 members can constitute the grievance committee, it doesn't have to be anyone on that list. So when I was assigning chairs, like with negotiations, I just put grievance as one of those, because if the chair of grievance can't show up, anybody else can chair grievance. So I never, in my mind, viewed it as a standing committee, other than it does say that. So I switched the grievance chairman. In the original list I sent out had Fiona, and it's been switched to Jim. And the negotiations for 1579, because that gave Jim an awful lot of responsibilities, I switched him out as the listed alternate with Bill Knight. Other than that, that's where it went. Yes.
So, which committees did you assign me to?
You are assigned to school improvement, the TEA negotiations, which you have already sat on,
Right.
and you are an alternate for the Administrators Association and the 1579 Association.
Okay.
Okay, so what does alternate mean then?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Me too.
Because it's not mentioned in the bylaws.
Right. We had this discussion last time as well. It's not mentioned that you can have alternates. It's also not mentioned that you can't. So,
But it does specify the number of people who will be on the committee, and it doesn't recognize that an alternate can vote in the stead of someone absent who is on the list.
that's correct. It does not.
So should we entertain that, and should the policy committee entertain that?
standing.
Okay, but for the time being, there are no alternates.
That's fine.
Okay. Well, there are, I mean,
That's fine.
So what are the duties ascribed to the people who are on this paper as alternates? Because I'm an alternate in 2 different places, and I just want to make sure I know what's expected of me.
Originally, these committees were 4-person committees, which required 3 people to get a quorum. We spent a 5-month time period where we had no subcommittee meetings because we could not get 3 of the listed members to show up. So we went through policy and we cut it to 3 members. So now only 2 people constitute a quorum so that we could conduct the business of the board. We proposed the alternates. It actually went through policy once. It was added to the bylaws. It got denied by a board 4 years ago. We're trying to keep, well, the thought process I have behind it is have someone that stays current with that subcommittee. If you were listed as an alternate, then all of the minutes, all the agendas, everything would go to you as well, so that if we had a meeting coming up and we know that 2 members cannot attend, then you would be contacted to be a member at that meeting. That is the intent of the alternate.
So you would only have voting privileges
If there was not a quorum of the listed members.
no, you would never have voting privileges because it's not recognized in the bylaws until we modify them. And we turn down modify, so you can't say, well, we can do it. We can't, because we've already said we're not going to do that. And
So would
shouldn't
you,
that-
just as a question, John, so would the preference be that the board business doesn't get done if you can't get quorum? It's consistently a problem. We can sit here and say, everybody's gonna do what they're supposed to do, but everybody doesn't.
preference is that we follow the bylaws, and if we can't work under the bylaws, we change the bylaws. That's the way, you know, you can't just ignore the bylaws or interpret them any way you want. Or you don't have bylaws. And also, aren't all the committee minutes and notices supposed to go out to all board members anyway?
Supposed to, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Do they now?
Well, they should, and if they don't, we should hold people responsible who are supposed to do that.
We can drop the alternates off the list. The rest of the list remains. The chairs and members are identified, negotiation committees, and liaison assignments. I would ask that the policy committee, I've asked the superintendent to search through the Connecticut Association of Superintendents to come up with the responsibilities of a liaison. And I would like to see that added to the bylaws, and I would like to see our liaisons actually do something other than just have their name on a sheet of paper. And have a report, and have information from that school, or that would be outstanding.
Did you drop the in-connection report from the agenda the last few meetings?
That's it. You're right.
That's why I haven't given one. It's the only reason I haven't given one.
That's supposed to be on there.
Any more question on this?
Yes.
I notice on the grievance committee, there's a note that any 3 board members constitute a quorum.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the bylaws online, and it
They're
says,
incorrect online.
oh, the ones online are wrong?
We
Yes.
just determined that last
I was
week.
wondering if that was
Because
just
they were
because
changed in April of 14 also. The ones up online are January 14.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one of the errors that
Oh,
we
so-
located in the last.
So, and I wondered if this was because of the contract. Does the contract, do any of the contracts dictate the grievance procedures and how many board members would be on?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand exactly what happened. I don't know, what was
Right,
what
so-
was the cause of your question? What was your
Well, I
question?
was just looking at the bylaws, and I'm reading under your standing committees, where it indicates your grievance committee, item number 6 on the grievance hearing committee says, any 2 board members present shall constitute a quorum. However, on this document that's been handed out, it says.
Well, no, the document's supposed to say 2, because it's any 2. Because the committee is only 3 people. The document that was just handed out should say 2.
Okay, so the bylaws are correct
The
online.
bylaw online is
This paper's
correct.
wrong.
Yeah, that one just got changed. I thought you were reading the one that said 4, because it said 4 on there a couple days ago.
Okay. Ed, you said this was because these bylaws were updated in
April.
April
just now
2014? No.
Updated in January, approved by the board.
It's just a suggestion, you know, maybe the date that it was last updated somewhere on the bylaws would be helpful.
It's at the end.
Is it?
Yes.
I believe it.
Unlike the policy.
It
where
is,
it's
I
on
see it
every
here.
page.
January 8th,
You listed it,
2014
yeah.
is the last update
Yes.
on this.
Yes.
And you're saying another subsequent
Yep.
update was done in April?
I think that's fine.
Yes. Any discussion on the appointments, liaisons, subcommittees? Okay.
When will we have the more specific information about liaison?
It has to be drafted by policy. Right now, there is no definition of what the liaison's responsibilities are. Right now, you're just supposed to, that's your school, you're supposed to be familiar with that school, you're supposed to, when available, visit that school, communicate to that school, have some type of rapport. And then if they need something, you know, if a principal or someone from that school were to need something, they would have somebody to talk to, and then you would be able to come to the board or the appropriate subcommittee and say, hey, I was talking to such and such a school, and this was an issue that popped up, or contact the superintendent or whoever.
We do have a.
We have a draft, yes, then that's
We
gonna
have
go to
copies.
policy.
Draft, we have that we can
That should
leave,
go to
and
policy.
it'll, yeah, and it'll go to policy, but so all board members know, are aware of what we're, what we found with the research.
Right, I mean, I would just policy to consider that a lot of us do work out of town during school hours, so it may not be possible for some of us to get to the facilities
Right.
during school hours.
Right.
Would the board prefer, you know, to have it, and then you could give the chair of policy
Yeah,
feedback
we can
on it?
pass them on. Okay. OPEB. Last evening, we attended, at the gracious invitation of our mayor, a fun-filled fact-finding meeting on OPEB, that is other post-employment retirement benefits. I believe I got that right. I thought I took it out, and I had it. In 2010, a trust was created, and a committee was to be formed. The committee was to consist of 2 Board of Ed members, 2 City Council members. Is it 2 Board of Finance members?
Actually, it's the entire Board of Finance.
Well, the
I
entire
misspoke.
Board of Finance.
Yeah.
And the mayor is the executor of the trust, correct?
Trustee, yeah.
Trustee,
Yeah.
okay. And this trust was to start accumulating funds because of the long-term post-employment retirement benefits that, and obligations the city has. It's currently been identified that the city needs call it $72 million, $71,919,555. And our account has none. Mayor Carbone has asked to establish this committee. We would be seeking 2 board members to volunteer to be on this committee and to help. The first part of it, the commitment, as I asked at the meeting, would be probably monthly for the first few months to develop the policy, and then quarterly after that as a maintenance.
And I think even that is probably overstating the commitment. I think, you know, an initial meeting of the board members, the city council members, and the Board of Finance, the goal here is sometime over the next 12 months, before we go into the next budget cycle, to develop a funding policy. So I would say the commitment would be maybe 2 meetings sometime right after budget. I would not even entertain the thought of asking anybody to do anything during your budget season. But right after this budget season, establish a meeting with the Board of Finance and Board of Education members, City Council members, to address the GASB 45 requirements.
Right.
You know, From there, it may be 3 meetings. We're gonna rely on Corporation Council to propose any changes to that trust agreement. This is all statutorily driven. There is no legal requirement for us to begin funding this. However, by choosing not to fund it is counterintuitive to any long-term fiscal health for the city. The obligations of this OPEB are mutual, however, not a 50-50 mutual
I
obligation.
was gonna say, the
Yeah,
board is
this
20, is
24.
approximately 24.5 million of that 72.
Yeah.
But if left unfunded, it was, if we took it currently as not funding it, it would be well over $100 million. The advantage is, it's just like any mutual fund, any retirement, any 401B, if we start putting money in here and it starts earning interest, it lowers the long-term liability. If we ignore it and you use cost of living, inflation, you're looking, instead of the current today value of 72 million, you're looking at 100 to 110 million. He used 2 different interest rates there.
Well, it wasn't so much an interest rate, it's a discount rate.
Sorry,
you know,
discount.
So, yeah, exactly. But
And-
by not at least showing a good faith effort to begin funding this, that discount rate essentially is a 3.5%. You know, if we start showing that funding, we can get that discount rate up to 6%. And I hope what everybody present heard last night, the additional benefit of doing this is a reduction in our bond rating. And
Yeah,
as
he
we
didn't
talked-
really hit on that, and I wanted to explain that, because the problem with it is, there was discussion as to whether this truly helps, and the question came up with the vehicle replacement fund. The vehicle replacement fund and funds like that, as far as a bonding company or a bank is concerned, those are cash. They could issue you a bond rating based on the fact that you have $14 million in your vehicle replacement fund. You could spend it tomorrow. So your ability to pay your bonds off really isn't improved, because that's just cash that you could liquidate at any moment. So in this, because this is a long-term, almost like a retirement fund or a mutual fund, to put it in personal terms, and you're lowering long-term liability, it improves your ability to pay your bond back later, which increases your bond rating and allows you to get a lower interest rate. And that, I don't think he really hit on that
He
last
didn't.
night.
No, he didn't,
And
and that, yeah.
he was kind of like, well, no, they don't really count that, but it's only because the vehicle replacement is cash.
And it's an ongoing, every year, you know, we may be sinking funds into that account, but we're
Right.
also spending funds out of that account.
Right. And the same as the insurance fund, he referenced that, but that's the same thing, it's a cash fund, whereas this is not. This is a trust that once you put the money in there, you've lowered long-term liability, which increases your bondability. You know, it's a fixed asset versus cash for the accountants in the room. Yes.
Do the members of this committee have fiduciary responsibilities?
No, well, you know, I shouldn't say no. What we do is, the committee, through its processes, will not only develop a policy for funding, but also probably agree that we're going to appoint a fiduciary, the same we have with our pension accounts. Hooker Holcomb has been, you know, assisting us with evaluations. You know, they could very easily be selected as that account manager. And then when I talk about those quarterly meetings, long-term, you know, it may be something as simple as on a quarterly basis, the committee would receive a report or meet and hear a report on how the fund is performing, you know, and whether any changes in investment strategies need to be made. So that's what I anticipate the long-term obligation be. The short-term, I'm hoping, you know, after our budget cycle ends this year, get something put in place for the budget cycle next year.
I was painting a grayer picture because I was once told this is only a couple of hours a month. And I think I was sadly misled, so I just wanted to
Then you
make
took
sure.
those rose-colored glasses off.
Yeah, I took them on, I did. But, yeah, we'll be looking under action items for a couple of volunteers from the board that would like to sit on this. The term is your elected term. When your election cycle is up, the board would have to seek new members of that. But if one was off, two were off, whatever it turned out to be. Thank you. 2015-16 district calendar.
Okay, it's in your packet. It somewhat coincides with the regional calendar that had to be put together by Education Connection. And this will be the last year that we have our own calendar. Next year, it's mandated by state law that we use whatever the regional calendar that comes out. So it pretty much, we start before Labor Day. We have some of the traditional no school days, such as Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day. And if you reviewed it, we're going to continue our third Thursday of an early dismissal for professional learning communities. It includes 188 days, and teachers 192 days, which has been there by their contract. We have 5 built-in snow days. You looked, the spring break could not come around our early weekend, or Easter weekend. 7 days, sorry. So it's quite similar to this year's. When you take a look at the December, we'll have day and a half, no, it would be through Wednesday. Wednesday would be an early dismissal day. So that's an error, just saw that. It would be through,
22nd?
excuse me?
The 23rd would be the half day?
Yes. And then it would be, 24th through the 31st. And then we would go back on Monday the 4th.
Question, Cheryl. What's attendance like on December 23rd?
Teacher or student?
Sorry, just the same thing.
Well, we see the teacher attendance. I was
Yeah.
wondering about student.
I'm trying to think when, we have more student absenteeism the Wednesday before Thanksgiving than the day before Christmas Eve. And it was interesting because we had to call school this year because of the snow. And when I was doing the snow call that morning, I was surprised to find out how many districts within our region here, Litchfield County, actually do not have school on Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Before Thanksgiving, yeah. I was thinking in December, but yeah, there are reasons to do that.
It's the greatest traveling day. It's, and people take it because they get a long weekend, where with around, the December holidays, I guess they'll get a long weekend next year. No, I'm sorry, looking at, yeah. They would have to take a lot more. So it's more Thanksgiving that Wednesday. We have higher absenteeism among our students. That's the thing, more people like to be in their home if they have young children at Christmas.
Do you need to have professional development during the course of the year versus just have them all at one time, beginning of the year, end of the year, whatever, so as to have more consistency with the student week to week?
Very good question. We need professional development throughout the year because usually what happens in August, we front load. If we have new curriculum that teachers have to receive or, based on now Connecticut standards. So we introduce it, we show it, but then all throughout the year, you're constantly going back, you're adding assessments, you're finding out, do we have enough materials to implement the curriculum? You have to find out how it's working. If there's new instructional strategies to go along with the curriculum, you have to revisit that. You really have to provide that support for the teacher as they're implementing new curriculum, new assessment, and just everything just general new. And since education reform 2 years ago, we've been bombarded. I don't know, would you like to add anything?
And if you do any professional development at the beginning of the year, then later people have tried different things and then they kind of need an update and a follow-up because learning happens over a period of time. You try it and then it's like, oh, I really want more training on X, Y, Z. So if you have time, again, in February, it really helps. And then you have time before the school year ends to really try those things out and implement new things.
And when you're doing, as we're doing now with the Connecticut Common Standards and with new instructional strategies, you want to both alignment horizontally across a grade level and vertically K-12. Especially, someone said tonight, Bill said tonight, he can't help his child with math because how different it is. And that's one of the reasons, because if instructional strategies change, we need to see if teachers are implementing it, true to course across the grade level in the district or within the middle school or within the high school. And then we try to put teachers together to take a look vertically, elementary and secondary.
The only point I probably say it every year is I would like to see more intensive school year where the students are learning that it's a 5-day week, 4-week month. You go to school, you go to work 5 days a week. Get used to that concept. You have a long, there's some months here like November, it's just incredible how lacking of school time there is for the kids in a month of November and December.
Well, I think also.
And I'm not saying, it's the way it's always been, but it doesn't mean that it's.
Look, what the challenge is with the school district is that, like in November, we have conferences. And you have to hold conferences when parents and family members are available to come in for a conference. So for teachers teaching, maybe an early dismissal day, and then they do everything but stand on their heads to get all the parents in. You schedule it at night, but they'll also be bringing them in the afternoon, and you can't be instructing while you're trying to hold conferences with a parent or family member, or it's a challenge. Good solution would be all year school.
Exactly.
I don't know if you felt the heat coming from that part.
No, I think they I bet you most teachers now at this point would agree, in looking at maybe 2-week breaks 3 times a year or something, because what's expected.
I would
December-
love that. Yeah.
December staffing reports? It says you on my list.
Staffing reports?
I don't know what it says you, but I'm looking at you, man. It says right here in
You weren't
red.
there.
I wasn't there, but I can certainly comment on it, because I don't know. Once again, yes, I have we take a look at the monthly absences of the various large employment groups, which include the teachers, the paraprofessionals. There's administration, professional, which is like OTPTs, and other, which is, and non-certified, like associates and such. What we've started doing is running the absence rate, the percentage of absences. One of the things that was noticed by the committee was questioned was the number of Friday and Monday absences. That's a report that we're going to start generating. And another report that we will be generating and looking at is over 10 absences for the year to get a handle on chronic absenteeism. So these are certainly things going forward. What we found in this report is percentages do tend to go up on Fridays and some Mondays. That's something of interest that the committee has asked me to look into, and it's certainly something that is now on my radar. Yes.
Is that because there's overtime on the weekends or anything like that? I know we have that issue at support, so I was just curious, is that because there's work being done on the weekends, so Mondays are being taken off?
Well, I mean, other than, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, other than the building checks, that's really the only work that may happen on a weekend. Am I correct in saying that? I mean, there wouldn't be a teacher or a para in the building working on a weekend.
I mean, I get a long weekend, but I know that's a chronic thing for us when we do Saturday
Yeah.
overtime, so you can forget
No, we
about seeing
don't.
half the people on Monday, so.
Our teachers.
The
don't.
teachers and the paras, the secretaries,
Administration.
Okay.
administration isn't. I know head custodians are supposed to do building checks, and I know if there's an athletic event, there's overtime for that.
Okay.
But generally speaking, we don't have that, so perhaps there's another reason. Yes?
Have we looked ever at how many are possibly teachers during retirement and chronic absences with people during retirement? That maybe are
What would be
discussing the
a
days they
good
won't
age
be
to
paid
start
out
at,
for?
61? 61 to 61 plus?
Yeah, I mean,
Something
people
like
that are
that?
within that range that
35
aren't going to
years.
be paid out, they're,
It would be 35 years, so it would be
35
around
years,
56, 57. Because that's when most teachers start hitting their maximum, and you can only go to 37 and a half.
I mean, I don't think by the contract there's anything you can do, but I think it's something we should be aware of.
Well, I had actually asked that question to Jessica Ritter in a conversation. Because my concern was, if people are given the days contractually, is there anything we can do? And she said that it certainly would be under the purview of human resources if someone has a large number of absences to call them in and see if there's an issue that, you know, they're having. She put it to me, you could ask if their immune system is okay, things like that. So, you know, I think these are things going forward that I certainly have on my plate that I would like to do to actually, you know, take some action on this.
I mean, it's a big business, you're gonna have to go out, it's just the
Oh, absolutely.
cost of doing business.
I mean, there's 730-ish employees. It's, you know,
You'd hate for
Do we have a, sorry, I didn't mean
everyone
to
else
talk
to
over
be
you.
penalized if there are patterns that we could identify.
Is there a minimum percentage that we're looking at, that we're shooting for? Is our goal for,
You haven't discussed that in personnel, that may be something to talk about.
because we're saying it's high, but I don't know if we're bouncing it off of something that we feel is low. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, with children, we look at when we start hitting 10 days, or before that, we really start looking at a child when they hit 5 to 7.
So are we talking more about total days taken, or are we talking more about the
I'm
percentage on a
looking-
given
It's sort of a
day?
combination of all of it. I mean, the absence rate is something we look at to measure it month to month, and then we, you know, we'll do a retrospective for the year. But I would think number of absences is more of an indicator. So, you know, I think 10 is a good number to start at, 10 plus, you know, to see.
See a pattern in it.
See it, and then look at the Mondays and the Fridays. So it's sort of a combination of those two things.
So December 17th to December 22nd seemed to be quite a high incident rate of illness in the school district. They seem to all get pretty much better by the 23rd. Do you know what was going on?
Jingle bell virus.
I would, I defer to the board member on that.
I do have another question.
Yes.
What is the work day of an administrator?
There is no beginning, there is no end.
Do you
And
have
I'm
any-
serious.
I
Do
defer to
you
the
have any
secretary.
expectation, though, what we expect of building administrators to be in the building?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Long before the children
2:45.
get there and long after they leave. Really, I can call the buildings, you know, I know our secondary people are in like 6:30 in the morning.
And when are they normally leaving?
They can leave after
2:45?
3,
Okay.
2:45, 3. But I know twice a week I go to meetings and they're just started at 3 o'clock. So, and I also know I do a lot of emailing and phone calls on the weekends to my administrators, so as things come up.
Yeah, I'd just like, you know, to make sure that if they're needed in the buildings
They're there.
from 3 to 5, even though
They're
it's
there.
not contractualized, they're accessible to.
Administrators don't have like teachers. They don't have a certain day, our day.
Right, there's
And-
no, like in the teacher, I'm sorry to jump in.
No,
here.
please.
In the teacher's contract, it's a 7-hour and 20-minute day. And, you know, with the flex time at the beginning and end, there's no such parameter in the administrator's contract, so to make them, to hold them to a certain amount of hours. So they tend to work, they tend to get in early and they tend to work late.
And there's so many extra curricular activities at the secondary level.
Right.
That, you know, they split it up among themselves because they usually need more than 2 people at each event. So there's a lot of, if they do 60 hours a week, they're lucky.
We're gonna do a little exercising now. We have to go into one executive session, come out, and go back into the other executive session, and then come out. So we're just gonna basically walk back and forth across the hallway a couple times. Can I get a motion to go into executive session to discuss the TDA negotiations? We'll be, hang on one second, we're gonna be inviting Joe Campolita in.
Second.
I need to recuse myself.
Yep, who made the motion? Alan, okay. Second was Bill. Any discussion? Okay. David, can we get a room? All those in favor? Sorry. Opposed? Abstention? One. There'll be one abstention, or not going. Yep. I don't know the right way. Recuse.